Invocation, please rise. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this great day that you have provided us and bringing everybody here that is with us today safely. We come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. We pray that you watch over and protect our first responders as well as our men and women who are in uniform, who are protecting our nation. Amen. Amen. Approval of the minutes. Any items, anything that we need to change? All right, notice any changes? None being, they'll stand as presented. Public comment, item 5. This is the time where we allow people to come forward and present to us anything that is not on the agenda. We give you 5 minutes. And when you do come forward, please state your name. Okay. Item 6. 6A, representatives from the Kansas Association of City County Management will formally present the Buford M. Watson Jr. Award for Excellence in Public Management to City Manager Matt Allen.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners.
Sure.
I wanted to recognize some of the folks that came with us from KACM. They have Kathy from Derby and Toby from Hayes, and we've got Howard from Great Bend and Brian from Goddard. Where is everybody else? Ernesto from Dodge and Don Ozenbaugh. I think I've got everybody. But I do want to thank you for allowing us the opportunity to come present this award to Matt as the 2018 KACM Buford Watson Award recipient. Matt is very deserving of this award, and I will review a few of his attributes a bit later. I won't tell all of them. But first, I want to read portions of an article to you that was written by previous Lawrence City Manager Dave Corliss regarding Buford Watson Jr. so that you can fully understand the gravity of this award and the value it holds to Matt's fellow city county managers and administrators. Throughout his tenure as a city manager in various cities across the Midwest, Buford M. Watson Jr. encouraged community innovation and provided visionary leadership to elected officials, staff, and citizens whom he served. During his career, he was recognized with dozens of prestigious accolades and served on numerous committees that looked for ways to enhance the field of city management and public administration. His visionary leadership is evident in Lawrence, Kansas, where he held the position of city manager from 1970 until his death in 1989. Shortly after becoming city manager, Watson began to craft a plan for downtown Lawrence that would eventually stand the test of time and create one of the most utilized, vibrant, and energized downtown districts in the country. He helped guide the city through a period of unprecedented growth and was praised for his commitment to his community. His professionalism and ability to guide city commissioners through difficult challenges and situations was lauded by members of the public and his colleagues around the country. Watson was a skilled professional who believed strongly in the importance of staff development and mentoring. Following his death, ICMA created the Assistant Excellence in Leadership Award to commemorate Watson for his contributions and he made toward excellence in leadership in the field of public administration. Seasoned managers and dozens of young men and women entering their professional careers have commented on his influence and encouragement to carry forth his high principles and dedication to promote better, efficient, and honest continued excellence in the task of governing cities. Watson served as president of ICMA and vice president. He also served as chairman of the ICMA Task Force on the Form of Government and chairman of the ICMA Ethics Committee. He was a former president of the Kansas Association of City Managers and Oklahoma City Managers. In 1988, before his death, he was the first recipient of the Excellence in Local Government Administration Award established by the Kansas Association of City Management. Matt, your accomplishments and hard work have obviously not gone unrecognized by your peers. You have not only devotedly served your family and your church, but you have served your community diligently and have put Garden City on the radar of many other city managers with your state and national recognition for innovation in areas of public participation, local government, social media, fiscal transparency, embracing diversity, and healthy community design for rural communities. In addition, you have served your community and region beyond measure through your leadership with such issues as securing Tiger grants to help improve the rail line in between Hutchinson and New Mexico, working with not only Kansas Department of Transportation, but Colorado and New Mexico's DOT, community partners along the route, BNSF, and Amtrak. You have continued your leadership with the Federal Essential Air Service Program to help communities our size retain this important program and maintain affordable air service for our citizens. Your efforts on the recent State Transportation Committee helped to remind many members of our state administration and legislatures that Kansas does not end at Salina. Your leadership on this committee was impressive, to say the least. And your leadership in the profession specifically has not gone unnoticed. You have worked on many committees with the League of Kansas Municipalities, the Kansas Association of City Managers, and the ICMA, International City Managers Association, rising to the role of president of KCM. Your devotion to the profession of public management is evidenced through your willingness to mentor young professionals in the city management field. You are willing to give advice or share experiences with young managers and colleagues. Matt, I and our colleagues have a great deal of respect for you and your accomplishments. I imagine these accolades will only multiply tremendously in the future, as you are not one to sit back and simply meet your Fitbit step goals. So congratulations, my friend, and please accept this award as the 2018 Buford Watson Award winner.
Thanks, Teresa. I really appreciate it. And thanks everybody that traveled today to be part of that. And I hope you enjoyed the lunch. And I certainly enjoyed you being there and being here with us today. Thank you very much. All right.
Okay.
Ready to proceed, Mayor. Item 6B, the governing body is asked to consider and approve a request from Garden City Public Schools and St. Catherine Hospital to allow the mayor to proclaim the week of January 20th through the 26th, 2019 as Health Awareness Week in Garden City.
I know
I think Polly's here.
Polly's here.
Thank you. I'm Polly Witt with Garden City Public Schools. And first I want to say thank you to the commission for the sidewalks and the trails that are being put in across our city. It makes active living so important, and it shows the emphasis and your respect for people to be healthy, and I want to just say thank you for that. Also, I would like to ask that you proclaim the week of January 20th through the 26th as Health Awareness Week for our entire community. Various activities will be done at the various schools, and you are all invited to come and participate in that. This is our 17th annual Health Awareness Week, so it has been going on for quite a while, and we really appreciate the support of the city to promote health and wellness for all citizens in our community. Would like to also invite the mayor, both mayors, one mayor, whichever, to come and read the proclamation at Florence Wilson to an all-school assembly. That's a K through fourth grade, had to think a second, yeah. K through fourth grade students, so there'll be about 400 students yelling, yay, yay, yay. So we encourage the mayor to come and read and do a little physical activity with our students on the Monday, January 21st. So please consider approving this proclamation. Thank you.
Entertain a motion to approve the proclamation.
Mayor, I'll move to approve the proclamation of Health Awareness Week, January 20th to 26th.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a second. Any other discussion on that item? None being, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That item passed. And I'll be there to read the proclamation, so. Okay, thank you.
And he'll do push-ups.
You'll give me my home.
I'll send you an email. Too.
Mayor and Commissioners, under item 7A, you've been asked to identify dates that might work for the commission training. This would again be held with Mike Condiff. He's provided kind of some windows of opportunity he has in his February, early March, I think, schedule. And I sent those dates to you, so if we could discuss both that and the date of the 2019 Commission Goal Setting Retreat, that'd be great. So I'll just kind of leave it up to you guys to work through that. If it looks like it's not going well, we'll move on and figure out another way to do it.
Yeah. Are the January dates available for everybody?
Not for me,
Okay.
unfortunately. I've
Yep.
tried to schedule my out-of-town dates for the fourth week of every month,
Okay.
trying to be more consistent, but then that kind of knocks out a lot of the
Okay,
things.
so the February 7th or 8th? Or
I could
5th?
do the 7th or 8th.
7th
Yeah,
or
I could do
8th?
the
Okay.
7th or 8th.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which is it, 7th?
Well, either one's
Or-
fine.
Yep, me
Just
too.
whatever you choose.
What's the 7th?
The
What
7th
day?
is
It's a Thursday.
Thursday.
Thursday, Friday.
Thursday be good.
Thursday will work?
Yeah.
We'll say February 7th then.
Is that
Is
gonna
that
be
That'll be for the training.
training
for Mike?
for Mike? And then we need to look at the commission goal setting retreat. And
6th,
he-
7th of March?
And that'll be the week of February 25th through the March 1st.
Is that the fourth week for you,
That's-
Commissioner Burns?
Yeah.
All right.
So that one won't work.
6th or 7th, though, of March. Is that too late, or?
Yeah, because the following week, 6th or 7th would be fine. The following week is spring breaks for
Right.
schools.
Oh.
I think 6th or 7th would be fine.
Isn't the 6th a Thursday?
It
6th.
is.
6th is a
Wednesday.
Wednesday, 7th is a Thursday.
And different on both of those?
Does it?
Doesn't matter to staff.
Wednesday's fine. 6th?
We'll do March 6th then for
that
the goal setting
And
retreat.
so
All
That's
day.
a Wednesday. It'll be all
All
day.
day, like we did down at.
Right.
Yeah,
Like that
exactly.
last time.
Better
The
center.
Yeah.
meeting on the 7th will probably conclude just shortly after lunch.
The training.
I'm sorry, on February 7th. Yeah, the
7th,
training
right.
with Mike. So you would have the afternoon
afternoon.
to schedule some other
Okay.
stuff. The goal-setting retreat takes the bulk of the day,
And that usually starts about
8:30.
8:30, goes
Yeah.
to about 4. And that, we usually have that at the zoo.
Benny
the-
County?
We'll check, we'll,
Or
Philip Center?
Philip
the
Center,
Phillips Center, yeah, we'll check on
Usually,
its
but-
availability, and if
Okay.
not, we'll do it somewhere else,
to be determined.
to be determined.
Okay,
Thank you. That
thank
was
you.
helpful. Item 7B is a monthly sales tax report. There's no other items under manager's report. We call your attention to the meetings and note. I want to clarify something on the February 26th. That's the annual joint meeting between the Pawnee Watershed and the Horse Thief Reservoir Board. We will be having a joint city-county meeting, which is probably has been moved since the most recent commission agenda sort of update that we send you. We're going to be moving that to the February 19th. The presentation for that joint meeting, which will be held in the city's normal workshop time. So our normal city commission day, the 19th of February, the commission workshop is going to be a joint meeting between Finney County Commissioners and Garden City Commissioners for the purpose of getting an update from Horse Thief Reservoir. And so Josh Hobbs will be present, and it'll be similar to the one that was received last year.
Sure.
If you're interested in going to the one on the 26th, that is an evening meeting at Horse Thief.
Right, okay. Commissioner Dale.
Yes, I have a comment I want to make on the monthly sales tax referencing the sales tax, for 7 months, 1.3, almost $1.4 million came in on that sales tax, and that is unbelievable
What was the goal for that? Do you remember the amount?
It's outpacing it slightly. I don't know if we've calculated the percentage.
$1,250,000 is what we calculated for the first year.
Okay.
So we're
We're ahead
So
of
we're
that.
ahead.
way
Okay,
ahead.
excellent.
Sounds good.
Shop Garden City.
You bet.
Yeah.
Is that all we needed to do on the end of that, I think?
Okay.
All right.
If somebody wants to go, just get with Salen on the 26th if they would want to attend, just to let her know, or,
And is there a number for the appropriation ordinance?
okay. Oops,
2474.
24,
2019.
2474-2019A. I'll make the motion to approve appropriation ordinance 2474-2019A.
Second?
There's a second. Any other discussion on that item? None being, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That item passed.
Mayor and Commissioners, item 10A, the governing body is asked to consider and approve a comprehensive plan amendment and rezoning from GC General Commercial District to R3 Multifamily Residential District in the 2700 block of North Jenny Barker Road. It's also been referred to as Hampton's Addition Phase 3. If approved, it would be ordinance number 2819-2019. Caleb?
Yes, Mayor and Commissioners, you have the complete staff report in your packet for this amendment to pass this ordinance. This went before the Planning Commission at their regular meeting on December 20th, 2018, with all 8 present Planning Commissioners recommending unanimously approval of the comprehensive plan amendment and the rezoning amendment. And this does rezone the property from GC General Commercial District to R3 Multiple Family Residential District for the area highlighted. And there are 2 commercial lots at the south end of the property that will stay as commercial.
Mr. Kentner, I saw that we're taking up the plat specifically in the consent agenda, but I had a question about that in looking at the design and the layout.
Mhm.
And I recognize the reason for the way that I think we're going to have to go all the way down to the, the way that the entrance to the subdivision is made because of the restrictions on access at the other roads, and I understand that. I had a little bit of a question, and I recognize the developer can plan how they'd like to plan within the ordinance and the code, but that center area with the kind of the pie-looking lots,
Yes.
I find odd. And, you know, I think that's an odd-shaped lot. I understand trying to pack as many in as possible.
Mhm.
And yet at the same time, I think, you know, for the whole reason of our purpose of looking at this, it is to say we have, you know, a responsibility to talk about how the built environment looks around us in our city, within our limits. And it seems to me that would be a very nice place for green space. I understand that they have park space, but the park space in this plot is on the outer edges. It's not really accessible by any of the other lots. And so I was wondering if they would reconsider that. In the same way that we used to build homes around big square parks, I recognize it's a different land use, but I would like to offer that up as a suggestion. I don't know. I don't know how desirable that lot's going to be anyway. So that was my thought on that, looking at it.
That is a good point. The developer does meet the current requirements of the subdivision regulations as far as good planning goes. The point of having the green space in the central area is more significant, and in this case would probably benefit the neighborhood better. But it does fall within the minimum requirements. We can make recommendations to accept or reject the plat in the right-of-ways and those. You have the ability to do that. So when it comes to that, if you choose to do that, the zoning wouldn't necessarily change on that, though. But the plat underneath it, if you want to take that up during the consent agenda to discuss that further, and you can for sure take a look at that.
Okay.
The square foot of those lots actually is larger than some of the single lots.
Yeah,
It
they're
just-
the square footage wise, they meet the requirements. They're unique in the pie shape. Meeting the rear yard requirements, they will have to, it can be done. It looks odd because we don't have the layout of the duplexes, but they can fit on there and still meet the rear yard requirements and those things. It's a little different, a different look, but it does meet those requirements.
Caleb, will they have alleys? So is that, the pie shape, does it have alleys through the, I can't tell, but.
No, there would be no alleys. Part of what this would be is that there are when, in looking at rezoning it to residential, they will be required to put, I'll step up to the map. Sidewalks will be placed around all the exterior of the properties. One thing with the plat, as part of the recommendations with the plat, is that these two parcels, if they do want those to be accepted as public parks, is that those be connected, not with an easement, but actual property, is our recommendation. They do have a connection here to get access in here, but the parks are separated. They did include an easement, but for park access, maintenance, and those things, we really would want that to be more accessible there. These lots will have a driveway that lines up with the driveway for the commercial, two commercial lots that are here. There will be no parking on the interior circle drive in order to accommodate the necessity for emergency response and vehicles in those areas. And so that gives you a little bit more, but those are some of the contingencies that are listed on the plat itself. The rezoning what you're looking at is the boundaries, which is this boundary line here is the separation between what's commercial and what would be residential, which is your action that you're taking at this time.
Well, we talked about pulling that item off the consent agenda, distinctly talk about the plat, we thought we'd preliminarily discuss it now. So if we could pull that off the consent
do that.
agenda,
Okay.
please.
If you allow me, I had something I wanted to bring up, is if you'll go back to the previous slide, the upper one there, Jenny Barker Road coming down and to that point of the turning and all the way up to Mary Street is a heavy route for farm trucks. And so we're going to have large vehicles going up and down that road right next door to the residential property. I'm wondering if we couldn't, if possibility of maybe thinking about it in the future or whatever, but maybe directing that some way to 156 and avoiding coming off onto Mary Street.
It is, that is one of the comments that reflect on the minutes that are enclosed. That was one of the discussion items that was brought up during the public hearing in regards to the traffic. If I draw your attention to Mary Street is truck traffic is allowed. It's a truck route from here to the bypass, and this is the connection to 156. Also, trucks are permitted on this section onto back over onto Mary Street there. Jenny Barker, however, is restricted from this point south of no truck traffic. It's not a truck route. That will be something that will have to be determined, is whether or not this will be maintained as a truck route connection or whether it will be limited as far as truck routes. But that is a concern that was brought up and discussed at the Planning Commission as well.
And see, for them to, if they don't come straight down, it's several more miles of putting it on traffic on, and most of them are all going to be farmers hauling grain to over there on Fulton Street.
Actually, those houses could face into that circle.
Yeah,
Oh,
all of
on
the
the-
houses in the subdivision all face in the, or will be in the interior.
Well, they could face either way, couldn't they?
They could, but they probably, that would really throw off the design if they're
Right.
all
Yeah,
half
some are-
facing in and out.
Yeah.
It would kind of make
Look
it
funny.
even.
Okay, thank you.
I echo Commissioner Burns' this a desire for green space, especially as our community grows. I mean, it's going to be more and more, if we don't carve it away or we don't make recommendations for it, it's not something that's going to happen. So, and I don't know, I know that this isn't the action to really suggest that, but I mean, I echo, I think that's important to really make sure there's a safe place to play.
And that's our concern with the parkland dedication on those smaller pieces, but we can discuss that at the consent agenda
Sure.
with that action. So.
Okay.
Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve ordinance 2819-2019.
There's been a motion
Rezone.
to approve ordinance 2819-2019. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Dale. Any other discussion on that item? None being, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That item passed. Yes, Dr. Clifford?
May I make a comment, podium?
Sure.
Dr. Bill Clifford, Finney County Commission. The map doesn't zoom out enough to look at this, but in our recently completed comprehensive plan, we have at least a line on the map connecting 50 to the north end of the bypass as a bypass to the northeast. But we all might consider, when we create issues like this for trucks, that a more modest bypass of 156 to the northeast part of the bypass might be something we could all tackle locally. So I appreciate Commissioner Dale's comments. We do have farmers concerned about this with annexation and prohibiting trucks. It is several miles around, but maybe in the future we can get together on at least a modest bypass in the northeast. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got 3 minutes before our 1:30.
Okay, I think we can do item C, at least started.
Sure.
Mayor and Commissioners, in the summer, the Community Improvement District was established. We went through the process here locally, but a bit of a gaffe in the process. We failed to publish the notice of public hearing, even though we approved it in the local newspaper. And so it's our recommendation that we go back and go through that exercise. Fulton's Founders Brewery, which the establishment itself is close to opening under the name Flat Mountain Brewery, will still be able to open, still be able to get all their licensing.
Okay.
The Community Improvement District is simply the sales tax recovery incentive that was put in place. And so while if we go through the process, we need to go through it legitimately, publish a notice of public hearing, hold that public hearing. After the public hearing, the commission will then again consider whether or not to approve a 1 cent CID for this location. This is a redo on the CID district.
Okay.
Everybody step down.
Okay. Make note that Commissioner Fankhauser is stepping down and from this particular item. And do we have a resolution number on for
If
this?
approved, this would be resolution 2772-2019.
Okay. Would somebody entertain a motion on that resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2772, 2019 for Fulton Foundry Brewery Community.
There's been a motion to approve Resolution 2772-2019. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There is a second to that motion. Any other discussion on that item? None being, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That item passed.
All right.
If we can have Commissioner Fankhauser come back. Thank you for coming. We'll see you later.
And I'll read
If you-
item B slowly.
Okay.
And then it'll be 1:30.
We should be 1:30.
This item, 10B, the governing body had set for today at 1:30, a public hearing for the consideration to adopt the development plan and establish a rural housing incentive district for the Hamptons Phase 3. And if approved, this would be 2820, ordinance number 2820-2019. So the appropriate action would be at 1:30 to open the public hearing, hold the public hearing. At the conclusion of comments, close the public hearing. The commission can then discuss the item among yourselves, and if you're so inclined, give consideration to ordinance number 2820-2019.
It is 1:30, so I'll open the public hearing on this item. Caleb?
Before I have Melissa go over the report with you, one thing I would like your consideration on is after the public hearing is, because this would have to do also with the plat that you would be pulling off the consent agenda, is that you hold off taking action on that until you, as you decide what you're going to make any changes as far as to the consent agenda item. But the public hearing, I think, would be appropriate to proceed with, unless Randy has any other suggestions on that. So I'll have Melissa brief you on this,
Okay.
our project.
Mayor and Commissioners, we're asking you to consider and adopt the development plan and establishment of the Rural Housing Incentive District for Hamptons Phase 3. As required by the RHID statute, the Hamptons Phase 3 development comes before the Commission to adopt the attached development plan and establish the RHID for Hamptons Phase 3. This is the last step the development needs to take before the City Commission in this RHID process. Hamptons Phase 3 development will be located at approximately 2700 block of North Jenny Berger Road. The development will consist of 14 residential lots, which will be developed into 28 duplex units, and these will be rental units. According to our latest community housing assessment team study, to meet our housing needs, we need to build 112 housing units per year by 2020. The feasibility analysis for Hamptons Phase 3 estimates 5 duplexes or 10 units will be built in 2019 and in 2020. Based on the current RHID feasibility analysis from the other existing RHIDs, we are predicting 65 houses to be built in 2018 and have currently issued 16 certificates of occupancies. Therefore, according to our chat studies, Garden City does show a need for all the houses to be built within this development. If the ordinance is adopted, the county, USD 457, and Garden City Community College as taxing entities will have 30 days in which to evaluate the proposed RHID. Shall a taxing entity determine it has an adverse effect on their jurisdiction, then the taxing entity will need to adopt a resolution stating such. If no such resolutions are passed, then the ordinance shall be in effect. If within that time frame any of the taxing entities passes such a resolution, then the city will need to take action to repeal the ordinance as required by statute. Staff recommends the governing body adopt the ordinance. The alternatives before you is the governing body may elect to adopt the attached ordinance, or the governing body may not elect to adopt the attached ordinance. The fiscal note, the developer will be using the private financing to fund the eligible costs of this RHID. The city will reimburse property tax increments to the developer over the life of the project, which is up to 15 years. The amount of property tax distributions cannot exceed our $1.8 million over the life of the RHID.
Any public comment on this? I'll close the public hearing then. Commissioners have any comments on this?
My comments stand as previous.
Okay.
As stated, I think I would, I recommend that as you not take any action on the ordinance until after you further discuss it, and we can go into the development agreement if you would like, in particular as far as park, land dedication, and layout and so forth.
We can do that. Go on with that. Do we Do we need to go to the consent agenda item before we do this and discuss that?
We could do that at this time if you.
Yeah, why don't you move it up and discuss it now?
Let's go to, we're gonna go to D2, or under new business. Under item 12, under new business, D2, it's under the consent agenda item. The governing body is asked to consider and approve the final plat for the Hamptons Phase 3. So that'll kind of get us into an order, so we're not kind
Yes.
of, I mean, we're skipping around, but this will help kind of clear up some things, and then
I
we
think
can
would
move on
be-
to the resolution then.
I think it'd be appropriate, we have the representatives from the developer here.
Sure.
And Ken Parks is here, and maybe he can come and address the overall layout and explain their layout to you. And then from there, I can discuss the items that are listed in the development agreement as it pertains to the parkland dedication and some of the items that are listed there, so.
I'm Ken Parks, and I'm the designer of this circle that we don't like. I think it would have helped if we would put the duplexes on there, the footprint of the duplexes. And you'll see just how much extra room there is on those lots. They are some of the bigger ones on that property. And like Caleb said, they do meet all the requirements, but that notwithstanding, I've laid this out about 6 different ways. And this is the one layout that really made sense to me as far as being contiguous all the way around and everything just kind of the housing units all being as one. As far as trying to make this into that center of that into a green area or a playground or anything of that nature, I felt it's a whole lot more safe to have them off to the side and using that land that's really not very usable in the corners to use that as a nice secluded playground area. If we stick it in the middle, we're almost going to have to put a fence around it to keep the kids from their balls or whatever going out in the streets. I consider that a very unsafe situation, even though I looked at as making that a green area in the middle. As far as green areas for the city as a whole, this subdivision actually has 2 to 3 very multiple amounts of green area as compared to most subdivisions. We've got the one in the northeast, the one in the east, and then we also have a green area in the south part that's going to be a retention pond. So as far as just available space for trees and such, it has a lot of that.
Can you point out is that track clear to the north? That looks like a huge piece of property.
Yeah, this is about 3/4 of an acre up here. It's 34,000 square feet. This one over here is about a little less than half an acre. It's 19,000 square feet. And this one down here is it's probably an acre and a half or so.
And so Ken, you said they will be those 2 parks, so you're planning on connecting those with, okay.
The latest rendition we did does show those connected. We just didn't have
And as
time.
far as the center, can you, so how, like you talked about how they sit on the,
In here.
right.
They're gonna sit right here up against the very front setback.
Is that 25 foot
That's a
setback?
25-foot garage setback. And they cover, if I may draw something about like that. So even if, they have quite a bit of area on the sides of the houses, the duplexes, plus they have some in the back. It's just a little odd in shape.
So
from a designer standpoint, I felt that it gives something new. Instead of doing the same old block, I actually thought it was something new and different.
Right, yeah, that's nice.
I could see how some would take objection to.
Do you have, so are there alleys around the other part? So, I mean, one of the things I love about Garden City is the alley system we have, and I mean, it's great. In cities who don't have that, it's a struggle, but, so I know those ones in the center wouldn't have an alley. Are there alleys all around the outside of those?
Now, this developer is, in a general rule, doesn't like the alleys because they're maintenance and they're nuisance, and they're actually, if you drive most of the alleys in town, you would not want them in your backyard. And so we try to, actually try to avoid alleys. We try to get utilities in situations where they don't have to deal with that.
So do you intend just a tall fence or cement wall all the way around this then, certainly facing the streets and those things?
Around the whole property?
Kind of like they've done on their others?
Yes, I would suspect so because of it's gonna be the backyard, so they wouldn't want fences along here.
So will there be a fence between the parks and those other lots, so it'll just a big fence and then a pathway to the parks?
Right.
That's actually more space than
Yeah.
really required for a park.
Right, quite a bit more.
Yeah.
It's just so odd located wise, and I think we talk a lot about the way subdivisions are planned and how that relates to health and fitness and those kind of things, and elimination of park space or odd access to park space. It does contribute in the way that we've designed, you know, the way backyards don't face each other anymore. You can't go to your neighbor's house without going across two fences, so. Is the developer absolutely adamant that you put 4 lots in the middle, or would they be open to changing to park space, do you think?
What you're discussing is raising the cost of the subdivision by 40%. So I'm gonna say no. I don't think it pencils out.
As, just to discuss with you as far as a little clarification on the parkland dedication, the development agreement includes that on page 13. In general, land dedicated reserved for parks, playgrounds, and recreation purposes are minimum to be a minimum of 4 acres of land. The developer is dedicating just over 1.2 acres of land for that. Now, it's also important to note that this subdivision is requesting through the public hearing which we just held to participate in the RHID program, which in the RHID program, some of these things can be built and paid for through that. Granted, the developer does have to put up the upfront cost for those expenses, but they can be reimbursed back for those with an amendment to the RHID program or your allowance to allow them to participate in the program. Which the new layout, as Ken had pointed out, there is a connection here, and one we required was a connection here if those were to be dedicated as public parks. Now, those could be kept as private as well if you choose not to accept them as a public. They could be left as private park, and then they would be responsible for maintaining and taking care of it, installing a walkway or playground equipment or other things that may be required. But those are also items that can be included in the RHID program that you allow them to participate in. So with that, any other questions?
No, I appreciate Mr. Parks being here and clarifying some of the layout. That helps a lot. Because just looking at the drawing, and I do appreciate that there's a connection points to the parks. That's interesting to find out about alleys, how people feel about alleys. But I think again, I know that it would raise the cost, and I think that could be prohibitive to them building. And so we certainly need, as Melissa talked about, we certainly need.
Is that, I don't know, is that an assumption though? Is it prohibitive to them building?
As far as a plan, they run their control of their own funds to upfront those costs, but they are reimbursed back for the costs through their participation in the RHID program. So that would be, something they would have to put pencil to paper on. Interesting part about this also, when you look at it as a planning standpoint, is that this property is bounded on all 3 sides by arterial streets.
Yeah.
As well. So that is another unique. We've never had a subdivision quite like this, other than it goes from section line to section line. But this one's on a small scale is unique in that factor. Melissa might be able to talk to you in regards to the numbers as far as in their development plan.
So they have proposed $1,014,329 that'll cost of their infrastructure. When we ran their pro forma of what they could recoup over the 15 years, we estimate that they can only recoup at this time $905,643. So if the properties are valued at $300,000 or built out over approximately those 14, 15 years, this would not meet the amount estimated to be spent on the infrastructure, however, just cover maybe half of what we're thereof.
Which is most development costs are borne by the developer, or responsibility of the developers. Anyway, so, but that does give you a figure for that number as far as where they are, where they possibly could recoup. However, we do know that almost all of the RHIDs that we have passed are ahead of schedule significantly, and the values have, we're very conservative when we put these numbers together for the purpose of the developer and for the city as well. But at the same time, we're trying to be as realistic in these numbers as possible, but at the same time knowing that some of these things are performing much better than we expect them to. So, any other questions?
Entertain a motion for the final plat of the Hamptons Phase 3 for the consent agenda D2.
I'll make that motion, D2.
Commissioner Fankhauser made a motion to approve D2, the governing, to consider and approve the final plat for the Hamptons Phase 3. Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second.
There's been a second to that motion. Any other discussion on that item? None being, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
That item passed. We'll go back to item 10B. We're back to the RHID, the Rural Housing Incentive for the Hamptons Phase 3. And then again, ordinance number 2820-2019.
I'll make a motion that we approve. Did you close the hearing?
Yes, the hearing was closed.
Okay. Make a motion that we approve ordinance 2820-2019.
There's been a motion to approve 2820-2019. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. Any other discussion on that item? None being, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
That item passed 4-1.
Okay.
Mayor and Commissioners, item D, the Planning Commission is asked, the City Commission
City.
is asked to consider and recommend an amendment to the Garden City zoning regulations, particularly as it relates to temporary signage.
Okay. You have in your packets the staff report and the minutes from the Planning Commission meeting in regards to their discussion and review of this ordinance. Basically, in a nutshell, that this ordinance simplifies the temporary signage requirements in the community and making it a little more business friendly. We found that most businesses, when we go visit with them on a code enforcement or a complaint basis, or if we see a signage that's out of place, not in compliance, when we visit with the owners of those businesses, normally they come into compliance right away. The issue is that sometimes if they didn't know those regulations, or they didn't, then they come in, they're required to come in and fill out the application, and there's a punitive fees that are associated with not following the regulations, in that the fee is doubled at that point. And most of them bring it right into compliance, take care of their permit and take care of those things. And we found that with 98% of them coming into compliance right away as soon as we come out and visit with them, that the rules still stay in place for the temporary signage. The minimum requirements are still in place. They still have to be out of the right of way. They have to meet the size requirements and location requirements, but they're not required to get a permit at that point. And then we'll enforce it as we normally would if we receive a complaint or it's visually seen by a code compliance officer that it's not in compliance. Visit with the owner, ask them to relocate it to a proper location. As long as it's proper size, then the case is closed, and it's a little bit more business friendly in that sense. We did run this by our our other organizations with the Chamber and Downtown Vision and Finney County Economic Development. As far as concerns, questions that had come up is whether how this may impact the one that we have heard at this point was in regards to what about for rent signs and for sale signs, which really, it doesn't really bother those at all in regards or impact those at all in any way, as long as they meet the size requirements and the requirements that they're already required to meet. And so that's what this amendment does. We've taken this amendment to the county. We're trying to keep all the sign regulations the same with all 3 jurisdictions because most everyone that does business in the area does business in all 3 jurisdictions. And so at this point, it will go to the city of Holcomb tomorrow as well. But we feel that this is a good compromise in the sign regulations in being a little more user-friendly.
Caleb, did the Chamber or Economic Development or Downtown Vision have any comments from their membership, or?
Like I said, the only concern we had is what we have received one from the Chamber in regards to a business owner regarding for rent and rent sales signs, and so it really wouldn't impact them. They continue to follow the minimum requirements. Yes.
I just had a clarification about the current rules, if you could state. I was wondering, is there anything that governs what kind of language is put on those signs? I mean, I would imagine that you can't write something offensive or discriminatory or derogatory, but then without any, I guess the rules still stand. It can still be enforced. It can still be removed if someone were to go to that extreme.
Actually, the courts have found, the Supreme Court has found that we can't look at any content. The city cannot look at content. There are some laws as far as
like anti-discrimination laws.
There are some laws that may pertain to the content that's on there, but that's a very gray area, and we really don't look at what's in the content of those unless it falls under obscenity laws or other things like that. Otherwise, we have to only look at really the size, location, and time that they're allowed to be up.
Well, I just wondered, since it's on public property, it wouldn't be on private property.
It doesn't make any difference.
It doesn't?
We can regulate time, place, and manner, size, but when you get into content, it's very, very narrow restriction area that we can apply our regulations to. And it's been narrowly construed within the last 5 to 6 years. So it's a real issue for municipalities, but absent, let's say, obscenity, and even that isn't subject to much regulation. So it's pretty much an open, free speech as far as what you can put on a sign.
Even on, like you said, out in front of, your downtown store.
Well, that's
on public property. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That has been.
That's why I was asking for the clarification.
We can say you can't put your sign on the sidewalk, or you have to put it in a certain area. But what you have on that sign, assuming it's not criminal in nature, defamatory against somebody, then we don't regulate it.
Well, I'm all for free speech. I just wanted to clarify.
Well, I appreciate this, making it business friendly. I think that's, and making it simpler, and the punitive damages, and that people will comply immediately. That's great. So I appreciate you simplifying this and hoping it passes through all of the 3 bodies. So.
Yeah, we found that most of the time, most businesses do their due diligence ahead of time, and they check what the rules and what the regulations are for running and operating their businesses. There's a few that don't, that are maybe a little bit of a rush or a hurry, and they forget certain things. But we usually work with all of them because our goal is to get them into compliance and not to beat them up for having the wrong size sign. So.
I also want to say thank you for connecting with the partners too. I think that's a great use of Downtown Vision and the Chamber and the Economic Development. That really, that's great work, partnership.
So this doesn't affect realtor signs at all?
No, and
so there's no fee for those.
Real estate signs fall in the same area as temporary signs. That is something that, with this new Supreme Court ruling a couple of years ago, that we'll eventually be looking at all of our regulations, because technically, as soon as you say the word real estate or for sale, that's content based, and so we have to. Those are things that we're looking at, and we've a lot of cities are still in the same position. They're trying to figure out to make sure that they're legal in their signage rules, and we're working through that, and this is one of those ways to help us do that, so.
What's
Okay.
the ordinance number on that item?
Approved,
Matt?
2821-2019.
I'd make a motion to approve ordinance number 2821-2019.
Second.
There was a motion by Commissioner Burns, a second by Commissioner Fankhauser to approve ordinance 2821-2019. Any other discussion on that item? None being, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That item passed.
Item E, the governing body is asked to consider an amendment to the Garden City zoning regulations. If approved, it would be 2822-2019. Caleb?
Right. This also is a amendment in regards to the conditional use permit process. As some of you are aware, the conditional use permit process is about a 30 to 45 day process, and application fee and application in order for applicants to go through this process. This went before the Planning Commission as well as the previous with the unanimous recommendation for approval. This streamlines the conditional use permit process, and the fact that this would allow, if a similar use, for example, one of the things we have the most, our Board of Zoning Appeals hears the most, is car dealerships. Car dealerships require a conditional use permit in the city of Garden City, whereas every 3 to 5 years, it seems like a car dealership turns over and it's a new, different car dealership that may move into that same location, and they require a conditional use permit. If basically what this amendment does is allow those similar businesses that aren't within less than a 10% change of that to go in and apply, come in and apply. We would go over with them what those conditions were placed on that dealership, that specific location with them, and then they would be issued the conditional use permit for their business and their location. And this would be allowed to happen twice for every location. Again, this helps be a little bit more business friendly for those businesses that require conditional use permits and that have not made any substantial changes to their location. If they're making large transformations or changes to the more than 10%, those would then go to the Board of Zoning Appeals for reconsideration of that conditional use permit. But otherwise, if it's otherwise the same exact business with the same use with very little or no change to the physical characteristics of the site plan, then they would be able to apply and be issued it without having to wait the 30 to 45 time frame. And
So I'm just wanting to clarify. So I'm looking at your memo, the memo GC 2018-45. So in the section where it talks about 28.060, the fee, so you're saying that without, they no longer have to have that burden of proof, that automatically, if it's the business is not changed more than 10%, it can automatically just transfer?
they would come in and fill out an application and pay the fee to transfer into their names, their business names.
Okay, so the only thing that says the 45 or 30 to $45 day waiting period is what?
Yes, that's what's taken away from that time frame. And so I guess the nice thing about that process is that it speeds up the time frame that those businesses are able to get started and opened up for business. Less time waiting on that period, and it gives us a chance as far as staff to go over those conditions with them, so we don't run into issues that, well, there was someone else here that was doing this at this location 5 years ago, why can't I do it? And we can go over what their conditions were, what the Board of Zoning Appeals said, what their conditions were, and that way they know what they're required to go by for that specific zoning district.
Okay.
But this says $250.
$250 is the initial fee for the conditional use permits, and then the conditional use permit transfer is $200.
$200.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like it's highlighted, so you're taking it out.
Yeah, we're
What's your
changing that. Those are the areas that we are making amendments to because we had to add that section end into that in order to, because we didn't have it there before, it was just a straight $250
I
fee
see.
for conditional use permits.
So you're actually adding that section?
We're adding that section.
Okay, I'm with you. Okay,
Entertain a
well, I'll
motion
make
to-
a motion that we approve ordinance 2822-2019.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a second to approve ordinance 2822-2019. Any discussion, other discussion on that item? None being, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That item passed.
Item 10F, I'm sorry, 9F. Nope, 10F.
Yeah.
The governing body is asked to consider and approve an environmental nuisance resolution which would abate violations at 1001 Gillespie Place. If approved, it would be 2773-2019. And I do believe that while we'd still ask that the commission take consideration of this resolution, we have made contact with the property owner and I think they'll give an update on what we might recommend and an abeyance of enforcement, should you approve it, to a certain date, which may give a little more time, but we believe could end up in resolving the nuisance with the property owner doing the work and the city not having to.
Yes, this first case on Gillespie, there are two cases there for this Gillespie location. The first is in regards to an environmental that you're asked to consider at this time. We did talk to the property owner. They just needed a little bit extra time than the 10 days normally that you have in your resolutions. We did make that change, as you see in your resolution, that the date is 14 days from the passage of this resolution, which would be today's date. And so that's what we've discussed with the property owner, and they've agreed upon that they would have it taken care of in that time frame. So we recommend that you proceed with approving this resolution at 14 days.
So there's nothing special you would have to do other than pass the resolution. There's no tag on the end of the resolution.
Okay. I guess my quick question is, if they're gonna...
4 days.
Well, if they're gonna take care of it, why are we having to pass this then? I mean, if they're taking care of it, why do we need to have a resolution that says you need to take care of it? That's the enforcement, okay.
Yeah, there's been 6 months of that story. That's why you're passing this resolution. That's why it's before you today.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. They've been
Sounds good.
warned before.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
I just for clarification, okay.
Yes, good
I'll
question.
move that we approve resolution 2773-2019.
I second the resolution.
There's been a motion and a second. Any other discussion on that item? None being, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That item passed.
And as Caleb mentioned, resolution number 2774 would be item 10G, 2774-2019, removes the vehicle nuisance.
And this is for two vehicles located on 1001 Gillespie Place, a brown Dodge pickup and a black four-door Jaguar located on the property. And
And then-
again, we were given the same notice. time,
14 days, okay. Entertain a motion to approve that one.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2774 of 2019, reference to a nuisance at 1001 Gillespie Place.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
There's been a second. Any other discussion on that item? None being, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That item passes.
Item 10H, the governing body is asked to consider and approve a motor vehicle nuisance resolution abating a violation at 303 North 2nd Street. If approved to be resolution number 2775-2019.
As you have this abatement notice for the vehicles, this address may also seem familiar because this was an action you took at your previous meeting. We were looking at, in particular, we try to do these all at once so we don't have so many resolutions. In this particular property, we were trying to determine where the property line was for the location of the Jeep. And so it is located on this property at 303. And so the Toyota Camry and brown Jeep that you see in the picture are both located on this property and considered inoperable as stated in the resolution.
And no contact from the homeowner or
That's
the property owner?
I move that we approve Resolution 2775-2019.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Commissioner Dale made the second on that motion. Any other discussion on that item? None being, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Item 10I, the governing body is asked to consider and approve a motor vehicle nuisance resolution that would remove a violation at 401 North 3rd Street. If approved, would be resolution number 2776-2019.
Again, this is a motor vehicle resolution for 401 North 3rd for the Beige Ford Escape.
I make a motion that we approve Resolution 2776-2019.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a second. Any other discussion on that item? None being, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That item passed.
Thank you.
There's no old business for the commission under new business. Item 12A, the governing body is asked to consider and approve task order number 8 between the City of Garden City and HNTB for the beacon replacement project at Garden City Regional Airport. This will have the moniker of AIP 3-20-00-24-42. Rochelle?
Good afternoon. So task order number 8, as Matt said, is the agreement between the City of Garden City and HNTB Corporation, who is our professional services with at the airport. The master agreement was in 2014. It had a list of items. Unfortunately, we were not planning to replace the beacon. That kind of has started giving us problems and is currently out of service. So the FAA requires we go back out for a consultant selection depending on the price of the project. It falls under the $100,000 price range, so we contacted 3 consultants and ultimately decided to stay with HNT for this project to replace the beacon. The project is estimated under $100,000 for the whole entire project. Basically, it'll replace the current beacon with a new beacon that's required by the FAA. So the agreement is attached. There's also a cost analysis provided by myself, and then some of the information going back to the FAA where they approved the agreement between HNTB and the City of Garden City.
Rochelle, what are we using for a beacon right now?
We don't have one. It is out of service.
And the FAA just doesn't know because they're closed?
No. No, it is NOTAM'd out, so that's basically goes out into the aviation world to notify pilots that, hey, if you're looking for a beacon at Garden City Regional Airport, unfortunately it's out of service right now. It was originally installed in 1975, and over the last 6 months we've had different issues with it. It just basically outlived its service. The FAA portion of the airports division is working, however they're working without pay, same with our TSA officers at the airport, same with the FAA Tech Ops. So they're still functioning. We might see a little bit of a delay with this project. However, the engineering staff is still on staff at the FAA.
How long can we go without a functioning beacon? I mean, it's kind of limping along, which, I mean, understandably with the process we have to, but.
Typically, the FAA doesn't like to see it over a 3-month period. However, they know this process for a replacement is going on, so they'll allow that consideration to be longer without a beacon. We're looking out probably a bid out in April or May, and then the award in June, which falls into the AIP schedule that the FAA has.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Entertain a motion for that agenda item.
I move that we approve the task order number 8 between the city and HNTB for the beacon replacement project.
There's been a motion, and Commissioner Fankhauser made the second to that motion. Any other discussion on that item? None being, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That item passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 12B, the governing body is asked to consider and approve funding for the Downtown Development Fund. Caleb?
Yes, you have the staff report in your packet. This is the continuation of the Downtown Development Fund that we're requesting to either continue or discontinue. We have last year the funding was carried forward of $168,637. the end of this, at the end of 2018, we had 117,142 still left in the fund. We, as you know, we have the matrix that allows you to helps you make that decision on when cases come before you or request for the Downtown Development Fund. Your alternatives are that the governing body may renew the funding of the Downtown Development Fund for 2019 at 117,142, or the governing body may renew the funding for the Downtown Development Fund for 2018 at a different amount, or the governing body may not renew the funding for the Downtown Development Fund in 2018. The staff recommends alternative number 1 to renew the fund at $117,142. The fiscal note is the renewal of the program would take the $117,142 from the Project Development Fund for 2019, and this amount is remaining amount from the 2018 budget and is carried over for the 2019 fiscal year.
I got a question. Does the Star Bond money is what we were using for downtown, right?
We budgeted an amount that was based off the estimate of when we, when and if we would do a Star Bond project, what would not be going into the City of Garden City General Fund. So it wasn't an exact science, it was an approximation, and we we transferred that money out of the general fund into a project fund. And from that project fund, one of the things we've funded is this program. It wasn't annual funding, it was as needed. The first year you put $250,000 in, spent it all, I think, within 9 months.
Right.
Put some more in. And so since it took however long it's taken, 3, 4, 5 years to put together the Star Bond project, there's been some money store up in this project fund, and this is kind of refilling the pot once it was spent. Was one of the things that we've done with it.
But this is the leftover, and there will not be any left after this.
Well, like each commission, each commission can reappropriate it, but we're months, weeks or months away from there being the originally intended use of that sales tax increment.
Right.
That would be created under the Star Bond project. So any new appropriation to downtown development would need to come from an identified source by the commission.
Right.
So as far as, over the last 4 years, they've completed 15 projects?
Yes, we've completed 15 projects with a total of over 1.9 million in estimated value of that from the private side.
Do you have projects that have been applied for but not approved as of yet, or?
At this time, we have interest in a couple projects, but we have no applications completed at this time.
So there still is, so you still see a need. And then so the downtown community really sees this as valuable, or?
Yeah, I would say so, yes.
I've heard from merchants in downtown and economic development.
There she is.
Yes.
She is back here in the back.
Yeah, I think I've seen a lot of good projects. I think it started out, we wanted people to upgrade their face of the building. And then we kind of moved from that to other things, roofs, boilers, a few other things.
But fire sprinkler systems.
Fire sprinklers, yeah.
But that's where we brought the matrix into place.
Right.
That would help us to understand, figure that out and understand. I think it's been good for our downtown and helping to keep it energized and invigorated, and it's been positive. I mean, with 15 projects and $1.9 million. So
I'd make a motion that we approve the $117,142 to be left in the Downtown Development Fund.
there's been a motion.
Second.
There's a second. Any other discussion on that item? None being, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That item passed.
Item 12C, the governing body is asked to consider and approve the renovation of 909 Fulton Street, which is owned and operated by the Garden City Recreation Commission. The renovation will require a 10-year lease purchase to finance the renovation, which requires the governing body to approve this matter under KSA 12-1928H. I'll turn it over to Aaron Stewart, the Director of the Recreation Commission.
Afternoon, Commissioners.
Hello.
Today I kind of want to go through the process, what brought us here today, some of our financial considerations and why we'd like to build this. I think first off I got to thank our staff though, because obviously several of you were here 3 years ago when a project didn't go so well. Because of their diligent efforts, the board and I are comfortable bringing this to you today. So I do want to publicly acknowledge them for their hard work, and we'll kind of touch on some of the financials that have made this possible, our gains. So, our project really started about 1.5 years ago when we acquired gymnastics. We audited the program and then audited the facility that it was currently in. Those of you that were here may remember that little lease I brought in front of you that was a month-to-month with pretty low risk. And we did that on purpose for this situation. We were looking kind of from the get-go, just the facility's tight, it's packed in there, which elevates the risk a little bit when you're trying to do gymnastics and equipment's really close together. The ceiling's too low, it stands at 14 feet. So if you get a full extension on a bar, your feet can hit the rafters, those kind of things. And you don't have to be that tall because those bars are sitting at about 5 to 6 feet, okay? So the board and staff obviously sought out a new facility. One of the facilities at the time that we were kind of quasi-managing was 909 Fulton. We were kind of paying the utility bills for a couple organizations that were in there, and they were reimbursing us, and we weren't really sure how we fit. One of the reasons this was identified as a place is because I had learned that in the past, Mr. Cecil Obrate was willing to donate that to the rec. So we went in there, we did some measurements. It was an extra 2,000 square feet of floor space and a foot higher. Not great on the height, but better. So, and to be honest, most of our kids are of the younger age, so it would work, generally speaking. So we began talking with Mr. Obrate and completed the transition where he donated the building to us in December of 2017. We then turned around and started trying to figure out a budget to do some renovations. We knew that those would have to be done. One thing that even my eye could recognize right away is we did not have an ADA bathroom. So we knew that some work would have to be done. We met with some local contractors to try to get a general idea of what this would cost. And it just by happenstance, Caleb and I were meeting about another renovation project, and I brought this up, and he mentioned to me, which smart, you're gonna have to have an architect sign off on this. So we proceeded to go get the architect, and we got the architect, Bruce Glass, that would then put us through the project. Well, where we were thinking between 250 and 500,000, that project really grew very fast when we talked about getting it up to a minimum standard. And that's really where the three options come in. So we spoke with that. We spoke with our staff at gymnastics. Our board has been involved in this. We went back and forth. We asked for 3 different options. Option 1 is to get the doors open. What's it gonna take to get the minimum to where people are safe? We can be in there, we meet code, the electrical is good, plumbing's good, mechanical. Because one of the big components is our current facility does not have AC, and that is actually a big issue for us. This would be a climate controlled facility. That's something we definitely identified. Second option, that's going to create some upgrades, increase the efficiencies, reduce those costs a little bit long term, a little bit of a facelift up front. And then option 3, which was everything that we wanted. And the big thing about option 3, there's a function to that new front. 1, it expands the floor space by another 2,000 feet. So we're increasing our floor space by about 3,500 to 4,000 square feet compared to the current facility we're in. The second is we get a 20-foot ceiling on the front. What that allows us to do is, and I had to learn what this is, but gymnasts can do what's called a giant, which is a full extension on the bar without hitting the ceiling. And that's important if we want to grow into the older age divisions, which right now we have 2, but we continue to add more ladies, and hopefully some gentlemen as well soon. So that's kind of where the three options come into play and the direction that we gave the architect. In September of this year, we reviewed that with our board, and they selected option 1 and option 3 to focus on. And the difference between option 1, option 2, and 3 was essentially $300,000 per option. So a $600,000 difference. $752 just to get the doors open, $1.324 to get everything we wanted in the building. So that's why option 2 kind of went by the wayside, and we then started our financial planning. Out of that, we formed a subcommittee. 2 of the board members were on that subcommittee, Jamie Warren. For good reason, he's a financial guy, and we wanted his eyes on everything that we're doing. Keith Rathman, he's our quote-unquote treasurer on our board. So again, he needed to be involved since it heavily dealt with financials. Jessica Wyckoff, who's our finance director, and then myself rounded out the committee. We did an initial review of the finances. And part of out of that committee came meeting with several people and organizations. One being, we wanted to make sure we had a meeting with our gymnastics parents and participants, get their input, and we did. We created a 5-year budget, and that was based on some conversations with Melinda, and then followed through and had a meeting with Melinda, and Sam Curran was also there to go over those, because again, we wanted, Melinda's been doing this a while, and she's pretty good at it, so I definitely wanted her input as well. So we reviewed that 5-year budget with them. They had some input. All entities had input, and obviously we wanted to move forward with that. We took their input, revised our budget projections, and then put a final budget forecast in front of our subcommittee, who then moved it back to our board, and our board approved it on December 19th to move forward and present to you. So some of the financial, excuse me, they approved option 3 specifically. Some of the financial considerations. One of the things that we really focused on is that operations such as improvement and expansion of programming, asset replacement, staff development, and continued wage growth would still happen unimpeded by this project. In other words, the last thing I was going to tell our staff is, oh, by the way, no raises for 10 years because we're building a building. So we want to continue doing the things that we're doing now, this being an additional thing. The project's not expected to be funded entirely by gymnastics. We do expect a bump in registrations, but we're not considering that being able to pay for the note, so for the lease purchase. We are going to be doing this at the right time. There is a national trend in gymnastics that 2020 is an Olympic year, and every Olympic year there's a huge bump. Now, we try to be pretty conservative with 20 to 25% of an increase, because that's actually, we're hoping to gain more than that out of that bump, especially if we can build this new facility, but we think we can retain over the long term 20 to 25%, just with the extra space alone.
Looking at your fee increase projections here, you're looking at $23,000 increase in fee participation over the time of this?
Which is right around 20 to 25%. Right now, gymnastics makes up 1/4 of the athletic budget. So it is by far one of our biggest revenue producers.
Okay, thank you.
So I know that sounds like a lot on paper, but given what it takes, given the nature of the program, and specifically coming into that Olympic year bump, I think that's actually a fairly conservative job. I think it's realistic, but I also I wanted these numbers to be as real as possible, if that makes sense.
All right, it doesn't look like you have much staffing here. You got $1,500 contract labor per year?
That's for contract labor.
Contract labor and part-time, $28,000.
Mm-hmm. So
what, just evenings or what? I mean,
right now that's our current operations. Our program fees are set up based on the fact that we looked at a cost recovery. So even if we were to add programs and add additional labor, those additional fees would cover that labor. Right now, it's mostly evenings. We have expanded in January to a few Saturdays. And we do have one program that runs on Sunday evenings. It's part-time labor. Coach 1s started around $9 an hour up to Coach 3s that are $15 an hour. So the expense is fairly low in the coaching staffing point, so.
And 94,000, you think you can bring that in fees?
Mm-hmm.
Are you bringing in that much now?
Currently this year, we brought in 84,000. We had a little bit of a yo-yo effect. We had a really big boost in August, and the fact that we didn't have air conditioning and kids were waiting in long lines because of the nature of the current facility. And
where is it?
It's 1609 VFW Road.
Okay.
It used to be a dog grooming or?
Correct.
Okay, I've never been in there.
It's a metal building.
Yeah, it's a Morton style building. So part of, one of the things that's helping us out here is last year we made our final payment of $99,000 and some change on our core fitness equipment. So we have alleviated some of a previous capital lease. 2019 would be a tight year. I mean, we're gonna have architectural, if we move forward with this, we'll have architectural fees, closing costs. We'll be paying rent while we're trying to build the facility. So there's a little bit of double over. So that, we're expected to be increased a little bit more where we carried 361, 415 and kind of a debt and lease payment load in 2018. We'll be up to 474, 575 in 2019 before it drops back down to 418, 405, which is $56,990 higher than what we had in 2018. So to put that in perspective, one of the things that's really helping us out is we figured out concessions this year. We are $22,000 higher in revenue, in profit, off of our concession sales this year. The other thing that I pointed to that helped us out was vehicle tax came in really high. I know you guys had to do an amended budget to cut those checks out. So that was to the tune of $35,000 to us. So right there's $57,000. So part of that increase is being absorbed by the fortunate that people are buying new vehicles and the valuation continues to go up and we're doing a better job of creating revenues.
I guess my question, I mean, I like the way it looks and everything. It's just, if we're gonna put that much money in a remodel, I mean, you could almost build a new building. Depends on how you build it, but what kind of ceiling height do you need?
20 feet.
20 feet.
What's the value of the building that was gifted?
A rough estimate is right around $325,000.
And I noticed you didn't build insurance costs into the expenses, at least that was provided to us. We're gonna have to pay insurance on this building, I mean, let alone insurance on
We
the
do
program.
already.
So we're paying on this gifted
Well,
building too?
we pay insurance on this facility because it's something we currently own.
So we're gonna have, I guess just those ongoing costs too. I just didn't see that as a line item, and the value of the building you're saying is $300K. Do we own the other building? The Morton
No,
building?
we rent that
We
building.
rent that one, so we're not gonna.
So currently
recoup
we're
anything on
renting
that.
and what we're looking to is invest in something that we own.
Are you planning on putting in new heat and air conditioning in this?
Correct.
909?
Mhm.
Because right now it has 2 rooftop units.
One of them is inoperable.
Okay.
And
Just
from what
for
I could,
looks.
huh?
Just for looks.
We used to own that building and the roof leaked every year.
So that's
With those
really
rooftop
where,
units, every year.
that's one of the reasons that option one got driven up so fast is the roof, basically repairing the roof and replacing it.
So Aaron, are you anticipating that, because I know there's not a lot of parking, and are you having to minimize some of the parking, or is it a drop-off, or how are you gonna anticipate?
We are working on drop-off, but we have actually included, we've had some preliminary talks with Overhead Door, and there is a concrete pad next to it that we would, that he will allow us to rent from him, and we would transition that into a parking lot. We like that better than some of the other options, say as talking to Ty Arwan, where people are gonna have to cross Fulton Street, because it's literally a walk across the alley. So yes, and we're working with, again, we had some preliminary talks, the architects and I, with Caleb, just to try to line all these things out. Part of why I'm here today is this is part of us and the board trying to be more transparent about the process. And prior to spending money and tying up some of those details, we want to make sure we have your approval, because I don't want to spend the money going out for a construction bid and for the lease purchase bid if it's just, I'm going to turn around and not be approved here. So I'd rather have your blessing ahead of time. And the board feels the same way. I do have Marilyn, who's our chair, and Deb, who's our vice chair here, if you'd like to.
You have an honorary board, so I don't know. I really appreciate that. I mean, the interest, the 4% interest, is that, is this gonna be a commercial loan? I guess I've not seen
It's
commercial
not, it's a
loans.
lease purchase.
Okay, that's why it's so low. Okay.
It's very specific, Randy could probably help me out with this. It's very specific to municipal lend.
As I say, it's really low. I was just like, I think it's a commercial loan.
And actually, that particular number is, we had a conversation with Commerce Bank, and that's a solid estimate, and in fact, it should come in lower. So where you've heard the number probably 1.5 million thrown around. The estimate on option 3 for 1.3 is the architect's estimate. Part of what came out of that subcommittee, talking with Jamie Warren, was to add another 15% contingency in there. So we want to do everything we can to get to that building, but we're not willing to break the bank to do it. So we want to make sure we had a good plan. We had some safety room there.
You've got rental in here. What are you, is the gymnastics renting from the rec commission? You got 8,400.
So that is for the parking lot. That is that rental line item for that parking lot.
Yeah.
I have one question. You've worked with Melinda on this for some time. Melinda, could I ask you, you've been around a long time, and and that's good, and that she has a lot of knowledge.
Experience.
There's pretty much no way to get out of that.
There's no graceful way to say that.
Well, forgive me, flowers will arrive tomorrow. But you were here 3 years ago when we went through this, and you've been in and out of their accounting procedures and looked at it, and in your opinion, are you comfortable with this?
We have looked at their actual financials. We've gone in and looked at their budgets, and they're being very conservative on their estimates on that. They are allowing for growth in programs. They have hired staff that is competent in their accounting procedures. I'm very happy to be working with Ms. Wyckoff. So that's been a real plus for the Rec Commission. Her reporting is excellent. She understands the financials for the Rec Commission, and I think Aaron also has learned a lot in the few years that he's been here on his financials, how to be conservative in his estimates. We did talk about programs that are currently being offered, and he assured me that all the programs that we're currently offering are still going to be offered, and as he said, there's going to be pay increases. Equipment will be repaired when need be. So he did satisfy everything that I questioned him on.
Okay. I can say since Aaron's been there, we've had more communications coming out of the rec to us from time to time, which has given a lot more confidence, in my opinion, of what was going on now, because you're talking to us. And it's good to know that you have accurate bookkeeping and everything's above board. And based on what I heard, I'm for the program.
So one thing I'd also like to point out, I hadn't gotten to yet, part of this programming, since this is essentially funded through tax dollars and other revenues we make, and it's not gymnastics only, one of the ideas that came up here and a belief that we hold is that there needs to be some sort of give back to the community from this facility. We haven't set anything in stone, but we have a tentative agreement with Mosaic during our off-peak hours that we're going to create therapeutic recreation services out of there to add to our already adaptive sports programming. So For us, this building furthers our mission and accomplishes our goal, and I think this is therapeutic recreation is badly needed in this community in a bigger form than just running adaptive tennis and adaptive basketball. I think we need to have more opportunities, and that is going to be done at no cost, because again, that's that give back to the community. That Mosaic and their clientele will not pay for that. We may find some grant money, some things like that to help cover certain things, but again, we need to provide those services. This is a good facility because of some of the equipment that we use for gymnastics. We can do some of those therapeutic recreation services with that equipment because it becomes safe. I don't know if you've ever taken a tumble on a spring floor, but if you're gonna take a tumble, that's the place to do it. So I think rather than inhibiting program growth, this is actually gonna expand some program growth, not only in gymnastics, but through that therapeutic rec. We do plan on continuing to expand other programming through fitness, through athletics, through arts. So again, it was very important to the board and myself that this doesn't impede what we're currently doing, including the asset replacement piece, which is a large issue that we were finally starting to tackle. The other piece is that I think I could speak to that I noticed when I came in is I didn't believe the recreation was kind of following through on their maintenance obligations on facilities that they had maintained, and we're not quite where I'd like to be yet, but we are improving things like this year restoring the gym floor, painting the gym, finishing the exterior of the building. Some of these things, those will continue to happen as well. So it's important that we uphold our end of the bargain as well as move forward to the future and be able to expand the programming and take care of the facilities we have, and this being one of them. So, other questions?
I just want to say I appreciate, getting the seal of Melinda is very important. So, I mean, I think that's, a smart move. And I also just appreciate the work that the Recreation Commission is doing in our community, and that community buy-in and that focus, and of course your board and your staff, it's been great. So, this is an incredible project, and so with that I would move, I would move that we approve, is it option 1? We can approve moving forward with the Garden City Recreation Commission soliciting for proposals and entering into a lease purchase agreement with a local financial institution.
There's been a motion. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
There's been a second. Any other discussion on that item? None being, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Commission, I think that will require you to approve the actual lease purchase documents when they are
When they get to 'em.
prepared, and so you'll have your counsel get those to me at some
Yes.
point. Thank you.
Item D is the consent agenda. If you approve this, the appropriate motion would be to approve consent agendas item D1, 3, 4, and 5.
I'll make the motion to approve consent agenda D1, 3, 4, and 5.
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any other discussion on that item? None being, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That item passed.
No other items to come before the commission, so we're ready for
Commission reports.
13 commission reports.
Commissioner Dale.
Very exciting day. Lot went on, not only in our normal work here as commissioners from 1 to when we finish up, but our normal pre-meeting, which was a ceremony honoring our city administrator, Matt Allen, and it's hard to describe if people out there in TV land, if they have not sat and had the opportunity to work with Matt and get to know Matt and understand Matt. It's a pleasure to work with him and be involved with the city that you're at the helm, sir. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Commissioner Unruh.
So happy New Year, since this is the first time we get to say that as a commission. I really appreciate our willingness to discuss, green space and the park situation, and I also appreciate that Mr. Ken Park's coming and actually explaining and doing some of those things. I know everyone's schedule is extremely busy, and I feel bad that Aaron had to wait so long. to talk. But I also wanted to say thank you. I wasn't here over the big snowstorm. We missed all that. I'm sorry. But the utilities department and the streets department, I mean, in tons of accolades and thank yous about how they got the city back up and running. And so I just want to say thank you for that. I also want to just say thank you to Matt for what an honor, and having the other city commissioners who travel from many miles to be here today. That's a testimony not only to what you do, but also to how important you are to the organization. I also appreciate your speech and really honing in on your children and your family. That means a lot, and so that tells us you have some incredible priorities and where you're really, and that this is your city. I think that's what makes you most effective for all of us. So I appreciate that, and like Commissioner Dale said, this was a wonderful day, and the food, I cannot believe how good that was. And I didn't eat the cake even though Jennifer did. So I just want to point that out.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I know.
You're getting hit from all sides today.
That's right, that's right. But it was, like I said, it was a very honoring day, and I'm just, thank you for allowing us to share it with you.
Commissioner Burns.
I'm up. Yes, congratulations,
Yes.
Matt.
Thanks.
Well deserved, and again, it was a touching speech and so heartfelt and authentic. And I would take this opportunity, as I allowed this opportunity, to talk about, because I've been thinking about the role of government since I joined this commission, and it's been so interesting and such a good learning experience, and really understanding the workings of government and the appreciation for good government. And I think as we sit here in the midst of a federal government shutdown, we're going to start to feel, if we haven't already, as certainly many among us already have felt the effect of that. But I think about our work very carefully, and the staff's work, and we talk about these ordinances, and we try and parse out all the different angles and the understandings and the feelings of how this would affect different citizens, and it's really important. But then we make these careful considerations, and I find that there's a responsibility of the community as well, and I think for the most part the citizenry upholds their commitment, but at times they don't. And I find that we have to start thinking more collectively rather than how do things impact me, and if I don't like it, I'm just going to ignore it, rather than saying this was made with careful consideration for the community as a whole. And I feel if we would do that in all of our interactions, I think things would run smoother. I hope that our federal leadership and our national leadership will start thinking in that way. Look at the people who are affected everywhere across our nation. We have to learn to think as a collective and act as a collective for the collective good. And I think we do that as a city and as a organization, as a leader for that kind of movement. I'm proud to be here. So that's what I've been thinking about for my Christmas vacation. Thank you for me allowing the time to talk on TV about it.
Okay. Commissioner Fankhauser.
Well, I can't add much after that speech, but I do want to tell Matt I appreciate him being our city manager, and you're well deserved of this award. I did want to point out that sales tax for 2018 is an all-time record for this city, 6.6 million, or 1%, which I think we're becoming the regional center fast here of Western Kansas. I did attend the first legislative coffee Saturday morning, and there wasn't a lot said there, but I did find out that John was moved to the back row, Wheeler, and in the House, which he voted. I guess he voted against the governor, and so they moved him to the very back row. And on the third floor, his office got moved to the third floor. I think it was kind of funny at the time, but. Also, I wanted to comment on the snow removal at the airport, and I'm sure that Michelle hopes that we don't have any more ice storms. I did get a couple calls, and you know, when you're sitting in Dallas Airport and it's sun shining. It's a little hard to believe that you can't land an airplane in Garden City, Kansas, but I tried to explain it the best I could, and it was solid ice. There wasn't much we could do, and we did have a couple equipment failures. So, but Matt did send out some equipment on Monday after the storm. So I think we did the best we could under the circumstances, so that's all I have.
Again, I really ditto all of what my fellow commissioners have noted about your very prestigious award, your speech, and where you place your values in not only your personal life, but also in the community here. Very honored to be a commissioner during your as city manager, and being the mayor. This is my kind of official last meeting as mayor, but well, it'll be like 10 minutes like long, and then somebody else will become mayor. But no, very, very high honor, especially when, like Commissioner Unruh said, when you had fellow commissioners or fellow managers come from very long distances to honor you. That's a very high privilege and a very high honor. So congratulations. I did, going into the snow removal and, unusual storm, a lot of snow. It's one of those once in a lifetime. You don't get those very often. And I had a few people comment and talk to me about that. And, I felt we did the best we could on the arteries. The airport, I had a couple of people ask me, after I explained the differences of what we have to deal with at the airport, and especially the situation, because I was out there and I saw what it was ice, but they asked, why can't we throw salt and sand? Well, it's aviation. You can't put sand down because it'll tear up the props, and you put sand through a turbine engine and there goes a $1 million to $3.5 million engine. So yeah, it's a whole different ballpark dealing with aviation than it is with roads and that type of thing. But kudos to our staff. I did email Matt and hopefully pass that along to the staff for all the great work that they did. Our electrical crews out in the middle of a raging blizzard and trying to get electricity back on and keep electricity on in our community. And so, we have an outstanding staff, and they do a super great job to keep our community and make it a great place. And I just want to thank everybody for that. And again, congratulations on your very prestigious award. I'm very proud that you received that award, and you should have received it a lot sooner. But I mean, it's great to see that. On that note, we are adjourned.